a new system inside the Davos Summit 2023. The World Economic Forum conference looks to set to focus on what the globalist elite can learn from the failures of the pandemic narrative. Not bad. I can speak some German. Well, that's my German accent at least. So you may or may not know who that is. Let's dive into what's actually going on. Because again, this article from Zero Hedge is amazing, and not that they are doing things that are necessarily always true or not. However, they're highlighting on what's the menu of the Davos Summit that kicks off this week. What's actually going on? And I'm just waiting for the new book that'll surely be coming out. Like we had the Great Reset a few years ago, and then the Great Narrative. So I'm sure another blue book will come out this year from our favorite Bond villain. So I'm actually going to read through this article quickly because I think it's not super long, but it's very, very pertinent to the time and just truly remarkable and incredible at the people who, let's be honest, have all of the influence and power in the world, in the human realm. So, like these are people that are questioning God, saying you shouldn't. Noel Harari saying you shouldn't believe in a God above the cloud. You should believe God in the clouds, as in like Microsoft Cloud, Microsoft One, the Google Drive, things like that. AWS. Yes, these are the people saying those such things. So I think it's very important that people have such power on the earth, in the human realm, that we need to take them serious. We need to take people, especially people that don't have our best intentions, the 99% best intentions. We have to take them at their word because they do wield really unlimited power, and as much power as we give them, which unfortunately right now is a lot of power. There's still so many people are not awake, and in this channel, my calling, I know, and many people here listening and many people doing their own thing are here to cut through the noise, provide signal to the noise, and actually provide resilience, independence, free thought, and free thinking to people, and real wealth to human beings, so we don't end up like Idiocracy, the movie, which if you haven't seen it, you have to see. So let's jump right in here. The World Economic Forum's annual meetup kicks off today. Politicians, corporate giants, philanthropists, and all manner of elite monstrosities gather for a weekend of telling each other how smart they are and making the world generally worse. But what's on the menu this year? Well, here are a few up for discussion. See if you can notice a pattern. Number one, addressing the current energy and food crises in the context of a new system for energy, climate, and nature. Number two, addressing the current high inflation, low growth, high debt economy in the context of a new system for investment, trade, and infrastructure. Number three, addressing the current industry headwinds in the context of a new system for harnessing frontier technologies for private sector innovation and resilience. Number four, addressing the current social vulnerabilities in the context of a new system for work, skills, and care. Number five, addressing the current geopolitical risks in the context of a new system for dialogue and cooperation in a multipolar world. Now, none of this is news. A new system for energy is a Green New Deal. A new system for international cooperation is some type of global governance. And a new system for investment and trade covers a lot of topics, including digital currencies, CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. Let's be specific about what that actually means. Central bank digital currency, SPY coins. And the global governance we've already seen. Again, some people might say, oh, this isn't real, this isn't true. What just happened in the last 2 or 3 years with lockdowns, things going on there? How did so many countries just coordinate all of a sudden? So many random countries just happened to all have the same plan. And how many of them were touting Build Back Better? How is it the campaign of Earth was all of a sudden Build Back Better? You gotta ask these questions. Have to ask these questions. Again, the article goes on. Like I said, nothing new, but it's always refreshing to see in print with no effort to hide it. Yeah, that it is. It's also interesting that they don't use the phrases new normal, great reset, or build back better, or great narrative anywhere on their page, despite the fact it's obviously what they're talking about. A little victory for the alternate media, who have been clearly raising enough awareness that those phrases are now considered too tainted to use. So bravo to all of the people out there calling these things out and exposing and shedding light. Again, we know the light is the best disinfectant for darkness and evil. In fact, the WF Brotherhood is clearly concerned about losing control of the narrative, as this article here, which you can see here from this article in Zero Hedge, and they're going to share some highlights. A few days ago, highlights. The world's biggest problem solvers. These guys are the world's biggest. They absolutely are. They're the biggest problem solvers that need to craft better narratives. Interesting. It argues people are more persuaded by the information presented within a narrative because a good narrative helps to ease information processing. Those trying to solve the world's most pressing challenges must take notice of this. Well, good little grasshopper, you're just not intelligent enough to really understand what we're saying, so we got to kind of ease it in for you. Here comes the spoon with the applesauce on it. Whee! The whole article is essentially a very long-winded way of saying we need to tell better lies. Open wide. We must name the real antagonists. Irresponsible politicians, bought scientists, and some companies failing to live up to the needs of the transition to net zero. You would know all about bot scientists, wouldn't you? WF, the Global Alphabet Soup of Agencies, UN. You would know all about that, wouldn't you? We must also stop pretending that there is debate over the facts of climate change. I thought that's what science was about. I thought it was about debating. A false balance is a phenomenon that occurs when a news organization or other media outlet presents an issue as being the subject of a debate, even when there is no actual debate or disagreement among experts on the matter. They literally just said there's zero disagreement from the experts all over the world. Every human in the world, there's zero disagreement. So I don't know why we're sitting here acting like this is some debate still, that climate change isn't real. Whether it's real or not, how can you not sit here and just absolutely laugh your behind off? Whether it's real or not. We're not saying it is or not. The fact that they're here like arguing with themselves, like, well, every single person in the world says that it's real, so why are we still us experts debating and trying to act like there's a debate going on still? The science is settled. How many times have we heard that? Science is never settled, by the way. I don't know who needs to hear that. The author, as it goes on, is talking about climate change, but his points about shifting blame and shutting down debate apply across the board. Of course they do. Looking for a shift of narrative, villains this year, as well as increased emphasis on positivity and unity. Unity likely means attempting to woo back some of the fringe mainstream elements pushed further to the alternative by the COVID narrative, as they did with Ukraine. Elsewhere, and on a related note, well, it's weird though, because again, when you lie to people over and over again for a number of years, and then everything you're saying proves to be false, and now we're seeing more and more evidence of all that, a la Twitter files, CDC, everyone coming out and saying, oh, we got to look at these injections we're giving to people, and Twitter files confirming everything that the fringe and the conspiracy theorists said was happening. Yeah, you tend to lose a lot of credibility. You tend to lose a lot of people there, guys. Who would have thought? Elsewhere, on a related note, there's likely to be talk of censorship, or countering misinformation, as discussed in this article here from 6 days ago. Digital safety, applying human rights in the digital world. The article details the challenges facing the WF's Global Coalition for Digital Safety and their efforts to tackle the likes of child sex abuse and exploitation, terrorism and hate speech, misinformation, and content related to self-harm and suicide. Wonder why there's so much of that now, so much suicide and mental anguish. Notice how hate speech and misinformation are thrown in there with the actual crimes. To quote Sesame Street, one of the things is not like the other, but that's no surprise in the age of legal but harmful. To be clear, these people do not care about any of these things. Not at all. If they did, their food pyramid wouldn't be upside down, right? I just had to throw that in there. Their businesses exploit children. Their state agencies fund terrorism. And their media outlets spit out misinformation at 50 words a minute. I mean, is it a coincidence that the President of the United States just happened to fly down to the British Virgin Islands? I don't know the last time a president or anyone's been, a leader of state's been to the British Virgin Islands. When does that happen? And all of a sudden, just coincidentally, the same thing that played out in Ukraine years ago happened in the British Virgin Islands. The Attorney General there was going after Chase Bank for funding many of these illicit activities, and all of a sudden the President of the United States strolls down there, just like in Ukraine, and all of a sudden the Attorney General's ousted in the next day or two, just out of nowhere, after filing suit against Chase Bank, trying to expose what was happening at Chase Bank and them, working with people doing these illicit activities. Can we put two and two together here? Anybody at all. They only really care about control. That's it. In this instance, that means controlling the internet. More specifically, controlling what you're allowed to say and hear on the internet, and much, 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 much more. Another potential focus for discussion, highlighted in a couple places, will be a push for more direct action, what they seem to be calling tangible solutions. The head of Amnesty International, who will be in attendance, has called for Davos attendees to focus on tangible solutions that we already know work, rather than opting to protect the existing global economic system at any cost. Interesting. A monetary transition, anybody? So transitioning to CBDCs, transitioning to maybe some type of gold standard or BRICS or something like that off of the current economic system. I don't know how else to take that. That's a rather big shift. Hence why we've been saying to prepare for what's going to happen, because we know these things happen about every 30 to 50 years, and we're at that 50 plus year mark. Underlining that now is the time for action, not empty gestures, and simultaneously echoing the new system messaging. The tangible solutions line is repeated in the narratives article mentioned earlier by financial consultancy giant Mercer on their page about Davos and their other young leaders of Davos. Of course, solutions-based thinking has been corporate talk for decades, and now is a time for action. It's a cliche that does the rounds at every meeting, summit, or conference. Nobody in history has ever said, now is not the time for action, now is the time for gestures. So of course, it could be empty words designed to make the speakers and their meeting feel important. But it could be something else, perhaps a sign that the propaganda stage of the Great Reset is over, and now we transition to the next stage, signaling a move away from passive manipulation and psychology-driven control mechanisms and toward more direct enforcement. So, in other words, getting away from the mass psychosis and the passively just trying to shape narratives in the background and the consciousness of people, and shifting into more like, no, okay, you guys, again, you're too stupid. We're going to force you to do everything we want you to do. Kind of like the Dutch farmers, like, oh, you're not complying, right? We're just going to eminent domain all of your properties. We're just going to take them from you. Good luck. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Either way, you can broadly define the Davos agenda as 4 main themes: a new system, reforming the global systems of politics and finance. Interesting. Controlling the narrative, telling more believable lies, and limiting public debate. Fascinating. Why would you want to limit public debate? That sounds antithetical to free speech and actual science. Countering misinformation, censorship, especially control of the internet. And 4, tangible solutions, making more direct action via enforcement and policy. So it's like priests getting taken out of their homes like we saw in Canada and other places. Interesting. The Davos talking points, it seems, will be retrospective, focusing on what they can learn from the shortcomings of their narratives over the last few years, we'll say. One final thought that we're not going to talk about here. Actually, you can see what it says, but we're not going to talk about here. I'm not going to actually say it. So, as we don't know that to be true. So, what are we doing here? How are we preparing? How are we getting diligent with our preparation and just becoming a more sovereign, hardened individual? Because they have a plan. And if we fail to plan, we're planning to fail at the end of the day. We know that. So what are we doing with our own life as leaders, as men and women, to help our children, our grandchildren, the people around us, our community, to actually be better people? Because the people at the top, at the unproductive class, the 1/100th of 1%, they got a plan. They got lots of plans, and it's all over the place. You can't step outside the door. You can't turn on the internet, your phone, the TV without seeing a commercial that's got their plan blasted, that propaganda narrative in your face, telling you what to think and when to think it. Between ad council ads to commercials to propaganda, whatever it doesn't mean, Super Bowl end zone, quotations and hash marks, they got their propaganda and it's everywhere. So what are we doing to combat that? What are we doing in our own life to change the people, ourselves first, and then the people around us, so we can become immune to such things? And then over time, that iceberg flips. Society then just flips and just corrects itself. Again, that's why I believe Bitcoin is such a big thing. You fix the money, you fix the world. You separate money from state, and a lot of this goes away. You can't get away with stuff like this, because you actually, in a Bitcoin world, you have to provide actual value, actual goods and services to the market, or else you just go away. You can't exist in a world where you have to provide value. So I appreciate you listening to this. I think it's just an incredibly important article. And do your own research. This is not financial advice, this is freedom advice. Do your own research, do your own homework. Trust but verify. We are entering, as we can see, a very, very different time, a new system. And it's changing every day. If you like this, please like and subscribe to the channel. Please let me know what you like, what you don't like. Please share it with someone you think could get something out of this. And I appreciate your time and your energy. It's the most important asset we have. I look forward to seeing you on the next one.